Welcome back to Daily Decode, where we unravel the most shocking stories from the world of politics, law, and power, and bring you the untold truths you won't hear anywhere else. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update on the stories that shape our world. Today's explosive story takes us deep into the tense halls of American justice, where a routine hearing transformed into an unforgettable showdown. It all started on a rainy morning in Washington, D.C., when Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett arrived at the Supreme Court building for a high-stakes oversight session. She stepped out of the black SUV, wearing a crisp navy blue suit, and carrying a stack of meticulously prepared documents. The air was thick with tension, and she knew this wasn't going to be an ordinary day. Inside, Chief Justice John Roberts was presiding over a session that was supposed to be a standard review of judicial ethics. But rumors had already begun, swirling that Roberts planned to send a message to several outspoken lawmakers, and Crockett's name was at the top of his list. The cameras were rolling, journalists were scribbling furiously, and the room was packed with aides, clerks, and a few curious onlookers hoping to witness political theater. As Crockett settled into her chair, Roberts looked directly at her. His eyes were cold, and his voice carried the weight of decades of judicial authority as he began his opening remarks. He leaned forward, almost whispering into the microphone that he had serious concerns about the level of respect certain members of Congress had for the court, and that some of them might need to relearn the boundaries between the branches of government. Almost immediately, the temperature in the room dropped. Every eye turned to Crockett. There was no mistaking who Roberts was talking about. A few people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others smirked, thinking the young Congresswoman was about to get a harsh lesson in humility. Roberts paused, savoring the silence. He picked up a stack of papers, then began rattling off a list of complaints about politicians who had allegedly overstepped their authority, suggesting that some were even undermining the integrity of the judiciary. He raised an eyebrow as he read one example of a fiery speech Crockett had given just a week earlier, where she called out judicial bias and demanded greater accountability. Roberts' voice grew sharper with every word, each syllable dripping with the kind of sarcasm only a seasoned judge could wield. But Crockett didn't flinch. She looked straight at Roberts.com and collected. Then, when he finally asked if she had anything to say in her defense, the room held its breath. She cleared her throat, stood up slowly, and stepped to the podium. Her voice was steady, clear, and filled with a quiet authority that immediately commanded attention. She thanked the Chief Justice for his remarks and said she welcomed the opportunity to address his concerns directly. Then she did something no one expected. She began quoting constitutional law, line by line, case by case, demonstrating not only her understanding of the judiciary's limits, but also how Roberts' own past rulings supported the very criticisms he was now calling disrespectful. The tension escalated. Crockett's words cut through the air like a blade. She cited landmark cases on judicial independence, separation of powers, and the First Amendment right of elected officials to speak out on matters of public concern. She referenced Federalist Papers, Supreme Court precedents, and Roberts' own written opinions. Every sentence she delivered was a precision strike. Exposing contradictions in Roberts' position, aides in the gallery exchanged astonished looks. A reporter's pen froze mid-sentence. Even some of Roberts' fellow justices shifted uncomfortably. Crockett was schooling the Chief Justice of the United States on the very law he had spent his life interpreting, and she was doing it with poise and irrefutable facts. Roberts tried to interrupt. He raised his hand slightly and interjected, suggesting she might be misreading the intent of the court's previous decisions. But Crockett smiled politely, nodded, and then read aloud the full context of the rulings he mentioned, word for word, proving she had studied them in exhaustive detail. The power dynamic in the room began to flip on its head. What started as an attempt to intimidate her had become a masterclass in constitutional law delivered by the person Roberts had underestimated most. The cameras captured every second. Clips of the exchange would later go viral on social media, sparking a national conversation about the intelligence, courage, and preparation of Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Hashtags like #LegalGenius, #Crockett vs. Roberts, and #KnowYourConstitution started trending within hours. Meanwhile, in that courtroom, the battle continued. Roberts tried to pivot, questioning whether Crockett's tone was appropriate for a member of Congress addressing the Chief Justice. But Crockett was ready for that, too. She calmly replied that respect for the court did not mean silence in the face of injustice, and that she took her oath to the Constitution as seriously as he took his. She reminded him that the founders designed the system so that each branch of government could challenge the others, precisely to prevent abuses of power. Her words echoed through the Grand Chamber, resonating with a sense of moral clarity. Even those who didn't agree with her politics found themselves nodding at the force of her logic. It wasn't just a defense. It was a declaration of independence from the culture of fear that had allowed powerful institutions to intimidate elected officials for far too long. For the next 40 minutes, the exchange became a back and forth that felt like a moot court. Roberts would raise a point, only for Crockett to dismantle it with a combination of historical context, legal scholarship, and unwavering conviction. By the time she concluded her statement, the entire courtroom knew something extraordinary had happened. Roberts leaned back in his chair, looking more rattled than anyone had ever seen him in public. He thanked Crockett tersely, his voice noticeably less confident than when the session began. The hearing moved on to other matters, but the energy in the room had completely shifted. People would later say they'd never seen the Chief Justice forced onto the defensive like that, especially not by a freshman congresswoman. When the hearing ended, Crockett gathered her papers, walked calmly past the cameras, and declined every request for comment. Her silence outside the courtroom only added to the mystique of what had just occurred. Reporters clamored to get reactions from others who were inside. One senior clerk described it as the most astonishing demonstration of legal knowledge he ever witnessed from a sitting member of Congress. In the hours and days that followed, pundits across the political spectrum weighed in. Some praised Roberts for trying to defend the dignity of the court, but far more people hailed Crockett for standing up to power with facts, not theatrics. Legal analysts replayed the footage over and over, analyzing every word of the exchange. Law professors assigned the transcript to their students as an example of how to argue effectively under pressure. Crockett's performance inspired countless young women, particularly women of color, who saw themselves in her and realized that intelligence, preparation, and courage could level any playing field, even one as steeply tilted as the highest court in the land. Social media filled with messages of gratitude, admiration, and excitement about what Crockett's future might hold. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, there were whispers that some of Roberts' clerks had advised him not to confront Crockett so directly, fearing she was too sharp a legal mind to be easily intimidated. Those concerns proved prophetic. Roberts' reputation took a hit among those who saw his attempt to publicly scold an elected official as a misstep that backfired spectacularly. But the real winner was the American public. For once, the nation had witnessed an exchange that wasn't about shouting or cheap insults, but about the power of the Constitution and the importance of knowing the law better than anyone who tries to use it against you. Back in her office, Crockett reportedly celebrated the day with her staff, not by gloating, but by going over notes for her next committee hearing. According to aides, she told them this was just one battle in a much larger fight for accountability, justice, and a government that works for everyone, not just the powerful. As the sun set over Washington, the story continued to ripple across the country. Videos of the exchange topped millions of views. Editorials praised Crockett's brilliance. Even a few conservative commentators admitted they were impressed by her command of the facts. Donations to her re-election campaign spiked overnight, and her approval rating among her constituents soared. What this showdown proved is that in American democracy, knowledge is power and courage is the force that unlocks it. Jasmine Crockett didn't just survive an attempt to embarrass her, she turned it into a defining moment that could inspire a new generation of leaders to stand their ground, speak truth to power, and never back down when the stakes are high. If you found this story as electrifying as we did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Decode for more deep dives into the biggest political moments of our time. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on this incredible face-off. Was it a sign of a changing era in Washington, or just a rare glimpse of what true leadership looks like? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching Daily